Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly ag weather update brought to you by the North Carolina Farm Credit Associations. We're going to start off with the long range. Got brand new long range updates from both the European Weather Forecasting Center and also from the National Multi-Model Ensemble, which is what we run here in the United States. And you're looking at the main drivers of that. So when you take a look at this image, which shows you sea surface temperature anomalies, our main story in the longer range is going to come from what we're seeing with this La Nina right in through here. It continues to develop. Trade winds are still quite strong here in the central Pacific Ocean, which is a signal of a developing and strengthening La Nina. And there's still pretty strong evidence that this La Nina will develop and continue to develop until we get to about midwinter. And that would actually be quite typical of this. But there's a second component or piece to this La Nina that I want you to see, and it's in the northern hemisphere. It's the cooler water you've seen through here and the very cold water we've watched emerge over the last 45 days or so in the Gulf of Alaska. Now, whenever you see the colder water in place here with a large warm anomaly in the north kind of central Pacific, this is a very specific ocean temperature pattern which has been researched for a number of years. And we call it the negative phase of the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. Now that basically means there's warmer water extending into this area, all right, and kind of a cool, almost reverse C shape to the ocean temperatures right in through here. That particular setup is what's, I think, going to be most critical to understanding where we're going. The La Nina in the Central Pacific and the negative phase of the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. You can just take a look at this here. We got a time series of this. I mean, this goes all the way back to 1854. We've been paying attention to these ocean temperatures. And you generally see that the flow, if I just kind of smooth this all out, does something like this, right? That's why we call it a decadal oscillation. And where we currently sit is now going into that negative phase. So getting into October, the value, standard deviations here, was -3. So the point is to say that that's going to be a key factor in determining the setup of the jet stream as we progress through November, then into December, January, February. And what we know about that time period is this. Let me blow this up for you. This is the correlation between precipitation through winter and what we call the PDO, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. And the way to look at this is that because the Pacific Decadal Oscillation is negative right now, the color bar needs to be reversed. So wherever you see positive correlations, I'll put a D for drier. And wherever you see the negative correlations, I'll put a W for wetter. So you can now see very active Ohio River Valley storm track. It tends to be very wet in the Rocky Mountains, in the northern plains. But from Southern California through Texas, parts of the high plains here, and then getting along the East Coast, this particular setup doesn't favor above normal precipitation. It does not mean we won't get precipitation, but it's our strongest correlating variable at this time scale. Usually ocean temperatures are just about all we've got. Now, we're going to add to that this map. In fact, watch me go back and forth. PDO, La Nina. PDO, La Nina. Both favor, from the Carolinas to the Mid-Atlantic, drier than average conditions during the winter time frame. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this with you is not because this is going to be the forecast. Why I'm sharing this with you is because every long-range model will respond to this. And this was updated on Friday night, and what you've got here is the December, January, February precipitation anomalies that stretch those drier conditions from parts of the southeast, again, through the mid-Atlantic. This is where we expect it to be above normal precip, northern plains Canadian prairie, and the Pacific Northwest. And if I just go back, now you see how we arrived at that. That's the relationship with La Nina, and here's the relationship with the PDO. So these models in their seasonal forecasts are strongly influenced by ocean temperature patterns. All the other things kind of get dampened out. The subseasonal variations don't even show up. The model's not even designed to see that. So just be clear that this forecast, which you're going to see echoed in so many different sources, is literally a consequence of those ocean temperatures. What does it not mean? It doesn't mean we won't see those big nor'easters that come up the coast. Those are still going to happen. It doesn't mean that we won't get precipitation. We will. But it just says, hey, if the ocean temperatures dominate the pattern, we just tend to end the season, end our winter with below normal precipitation. And there's some consequences to that I'll talk about in just a few seconds. But first, I would like to show you the temperature pattern. It tends to be milder. All right, newest updates here suggest a milder overall winter. But what I want you to notice is this. This area in through here tends to be colder. The Canadian prairie, the northern plains, And what this tends to actually give us is that while we may have more days of warmer than average conditions, if the storehouse of cold air is here, when it comes through, it comes through. And therefore, I would tell you in the Carolinas to expect a very volatile winter in terms of temperatures. You may get stretches of really nice warm weather through winter, and then it will be replaced with Arctic air. But we're used to that. We get that in winter. That's what we expect, right? Let's add to this another dimension. This is the latest update from the National Multi-Model Ensemble. I mentioned that a few moments ago. See the same thing, active Ohio River Valley storm track, December through February, and above normal precipitation for the Pacific Northwest. They've got us drier, but that's that's exactly what we'd expect from the La Nina negative PDO combination that this model ingested when it produced this forecast. And on the temperature side, you see the same thing. Now, just a word here. The jet stream will likely follow that path throughout much of winter. Okay? And if we do develop a lot of systems in this area and they race up the coast, we get their fronts. We know that. And we also often get those backdoor cold fronts, which lead to more icing events. I just want you to be aware that I'm watching all of that very, very carefully right now. So, as I said, while we call this a forecast, it's just a correlation, and the models are mostly driven by ocean temperatures this far out. Now, with that kind of out of the way, getting another look now at what winter could hold for us, I want to do one other thing before I get into your near-term forecast. I'm going to come back here, switch this back over to the seasonal precipitation forecast for December, January, February, and switch your view to South America. Now, this was an impressive shift overall. The newest update for Brazil is that and this is consistent with the La Nina, we think that much of Brazil's northern, so I'm talking about Mato Grosso, into its eastern growing areas, so Tocantins, this is Goiás, Minas Gerais, even down to Sao Paulo, could continue to favor above normal precipitation like they're getting right now. There's a risk the farther south you go, Paraguay, Uruguay, but look at the very strong negative anomalies. That would be drier than normal conditions that just showed up in Argentina. And I'm going to have to watch this carefully because while this is very consistent with the La Nina that's developing, those kind of anomalies, we're talking 5-6 inches in deficit in this area. This could have a major impact if this does verify on the Argentinian growing season. While it may not affect Brazil as much, we're going to watch the southern South America growing areas. Okay, from here, why don't we just talk about what we've seen over the last 30 days. Let me shrink that up so you can see the color bar. There you go. This is percent of normal precipitation, and this was valid through Sunday morning. We have a lot of drier area, several drier pockets here in parts of North Carolina. And despite the system that came up over the weekend, I'll show you the effect of that in just a few seconds, we do have drought that has emerged throughout the state over the last month. Now, at this point, it's just kind of in the first 2 stages of drought, but we got lower soil moisture values, and we really do want to just make sure that we don't go through winter developing drought. Now, you know that both La Nina and the negative PDO would indicate that we'd have a better chance of doing that. And I told you, those are just correlations. We have to pay attention and watch it very, very carefully moving forward. But our latest drought monitor means going into our cold season, we're not exactly starting off on the best foot in terms of keeping that soil moisture up throughout our winter time period, our cold season. Over the weekend, it didn't really help. This would be the last 72 hours of total accumulated precipitation. Last week we were paying attention to a low that was developing here on Friday, cutting across Florida on Saturday, and there was good indications about a week ago that this was going to run up the East Coast. And as a result, we expected more precipitation farther inland into the Carolinas, and it just didn't deliver because that system got kicked out in a big way. And it's still out here churning out in the open Atlantic. In fact, the National Hurricane Center is keeping an eye on it, to be honest, that it could transition into what we call a subtropical storm system. But at this point, it just didn't deliver much rain to North Carolina. We got the wind, really rough seas just offshore, but didn't get the heavier precipitation. Now, since this is where we currently sit, let's get that forecast of where we're going. And the first map I want to share with you here is from the 0Z European Ensemble. So it's a 51-member ensemble. And with that, we can look at all of the different forecasts and get a probability of a specific event. And that's what you're looking at here, the probability of getting at least an inch of rain through the next 10 days. And you can look at the color bar and kind of match this up. We only have about a 10 to 30% chance of seeing that happen, a little higher over toward the Appalachian Mountains. And I want to kind of share with you why that's the case. And to do that, we've got to step into the upper levels of the atmosphere and look at the trough ridge pattern. Throughout much of this week, we have a ridge that's building over. So we're going to have warmer conditions through this week, at least through the beginning of this week, and drier conditions. And then we see that by Wednesday, getting into Thursday here, deep trough comes in the midsection of the country. But that trough, if you just notice, the flow comes in and shoots up like that. So the trough axis is what we call negatively tilted. This means that the winds, the system that'll curl around the south side of that trough gets ejected north, doesn't push east until late in the week. So this is Thursday morning. It won't be until we get late in the week that trough deepens over Lake Superior and then starts to cut through. And it's interesting, this always reminds me when we get these big storm systems like this that go toward Lake Superior in November. Just one of my favorite songs, because I'm a weather guy, is The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald by Gordon Lightfoot. And it's a good song to just listen to this time of year. But this is a deep low that's going to be here over the Great Lakes. And that means by the end of this week, we're going to get the front coming through. But then what you're going to notice is the trough establishes across the eastern part of the United States in the next week. And the flow comes in and dives like that. Now what's important is that this is going to deliver colder air, but it's also going to deliver a lot of convergence in the flow, meaning as we get into week 2, we're going to see drier conditions. So let's kind of walk through all of this. Ready? We know that high pressure is in place today, tomorrow, which is Tuesday, getting into Wednesday and Thursday. So this is Thursday at 6 a.m. Here's the low that's forming over northern Minnesota and Lake Superior. And by the time we get to Thursday, let's call it Thursday afternoon and evening, getting into the overnight hours, that's when the front's going to come through us. So this is a deep, what we call stacked low. And that main frontal boundary, this is actually an upper level front. Can you kind of see the streaky nature in the European model? That means that we could be running the risk of thunderstorm development late in the week. All right. This is Friday. Let's now get into Friday afternoon and evening. That front clears on Friday, see? And then behind it, we kind of stay in the convergent area of that trough and don't necessarily see too wet of conditions to finish the weekend. What it's unfortunately going to be, though, is cold as we finish the weekend. So let's stop this out here 1 week from now, and let's flip over and take a look at that total accumulated precip. So let's just let this play. We'll stop it right there. That's Thursday evening. That's our first chance right there for starting to see precip this week. But Thursday through Friday, streaks on through. It's hard to give you a total precipitation amount because some of this could be convective, thunderstorm activity coming through here. But generally speaking, when we look longer term, over the next 7 to 8 days, that's our main event coming through. We just don't add a lot of precipitation to it. So that's it. We're watching the end of this week for our next chance at precipitation. Now, as I stated, we rebuild a ridge west and a trough over the east by the time we get to next Monday. And then playing through next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, what we end up seeing here is that going out there into week 2, the next system comes through and stays north again. And the point behind telling you that is that it's hard when you get a system this far north to really bring above normal precipitation to the southeast to the Carolinas. And that's why the European model out there to week 2 continues to show near normal to drier than normal conditions. All the actions here. All right. On the temperature side of this, I thought I would just bring up a map that kind of shows you from the 1st of November through the 7th of November, everywhere that's in gray here saw its first frost, according to the RTMA data set. We could have had frost a little bit farther east of that line, just in the low-lying areas or maybe on rooftops and stuff. But this is where we had a measurable frost of temperatures below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Where are we going with temperatures? Let's take a look at high temperatures now, because we've got Monday's highs in the 60s, maybe cracking 70. Warm on Tuesday, continues that way on Wednesday and Thursday. So we're going to see those temperatures really get up into the low to mid 70s. But you can already see the changeover happening behind this. There's Friday's highs. That's our best chance at rain. And then the cold air comes in behind it. Next Saturday, 59 degrees in Raleigh, 52 on Sunday. That's the trough becoming established. As you look out there, day 5 through 10, all right, so this would be the next few days into next week, we continue to see the cooler than average conditions here as the ridge rebuilds to the west. But what I want to finish with, 2 things. Take a look at this. Day 10 through 15, We have talked a lot this year about how we've not yet built up a big reservoir of cold air in the Canadian prairie. But by day 10 through 15, there are some indications that that's finally going to happen. And what we always watch is for when the cold air builds up here, or here, just anywhere to our north, it becomes a source region that gets pulled through the Midwest and then eventually toward the Carolinas. So I want to keep an eye on this, because by the time we get into that third week of the month, we're talking about having a reservoir of cold air develop and be in place to give us a cold finish to November. And the European weeklies have picked up on this. Ready? This would be a 7-day sliding window. The current time period you're seeing here is the 8th through the 15th. All right. As I play this forward, what you're going to notice is there's the cold air we're expecting next week, but still, we're waiting on this to develop. That's the cold air from next week. You start to see that cold air taking shape, and then working through like Thanksgiving week, that's when we start to see the push toward the colder weather here. And then it appears as we get into December that we're not necessarily giving up the cooler shots of air. And that's consistent with some of the stuff we talked about at the beginning of the video. But let's do this. 30-day precipitation anomalies, that would be the 19th of November through the 19th of December. And what we see here is very typical of La Nina. See it? Drier from Texas to the Carolinas. So I think that's what we're going to have to watch most carefully progressing through this month. I'll just be honest, I'll be concerned about drought until I'm not concerned about it. So we'll watch it and we'll see things shake out here with the forecast. And I'll look forward to giving you another update next week. Appreciate your attention. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll talk to you on Monday. Thanks.